I didn't have the luxury of being sent any test rolls of Phoenix from Harman, and maybe someday this channel will get me to that point. So like many of you out there watching, I had to wait until December 1st before I could head to my local photo store and pick up some Harman Phoenix 200. There was a solid week in there where this was all that anyone in the film photography community was talking about, and rightfully so. It's a big deal. A very big deal. Even that's kind of underselling it. In case you've been living under a rock or you've been in a coma since October, let me catch you up to speed. Sometime in October, Harman Photo, the company behind Ilford, started posting on their Instagram page that something was coming. People were pretty quick to guess that it was a new color film, and then leaks soon after confirmed that. But then on December 1st, they officially announced it, and Phoenix, a brand new 200 ISO C41 color film stock, was unveiled to the world. Along with a slew of YouTubers posting reviews and videos and stuff all over, reviews with photos that had varying degrees of quality. And that's not me throwing shade at Harman. We'll talk about why that is in just a minute. Safe to say that I was in line from day one. I wasn't gonna risk it selling out before I could get my hands on it, as it's kind of an important moment in history. Also, it's important to mention that Phoenix 200 is more than just a fancy or exclusive film project. It's also important to note that this is not recycled or repackaged or renamed film. This is a completely new creation from Harman Photo. Even though Harman can't sell it under the name Ilford for legal reasons, the film is created by the same experienced team of people at their same location in the UK. Harman has a rich history in film production, and their commitment is to ensure the longevity of the medium well into the future. They are adamant about their commitment to establishing a genuinely competitive market for color film, since for decades there was always maybe one or two manufacturers in the world actually producing this stuff. So I grabbed 2 rolls and set out to shoot it as soon as possible. And it turns out that it ended up taking me about 12 days to do so. It was a very busy beginning of the month. I watched all of the reviews, all of the videos, of course, because I wanted to have some idea of how to shoot this stuff, sort of understand the do's and don'ts. The most common things that I heard were to shoot in good, consistent light, get your exposure correct, and that being said, maybe overexpose just a little bit. So I did that, and I rated my roll at 160 instead of 200, just to kind of give it that little extra push, a little bit of extra light. And because of that, you'll notice when we get to the photos, a lot of the time my highlights are pretty blown out, and we'll talk about that later. Harman says that this film could be shot anywhere from 100 to 400 ISO. I have yet to see any examples of anyone shooting it at 400. I'd be curious to see what that looks like. If you have shot it, let me know. I want to see your photos. But alright, enough talking about it. Let's actually see what this film can do. I shot my roll with a Pentax K1000, and I use an SMC Pentax M50mm f2 and a Hanimex automatic 28mm lens. So right off the bat, we get some interesting results. The grain is pretty heavy for a 200 speed film. The photos are contrasty and saturated, but honestly, I'm digging it a lot. There are some color shifts here and there, and I will say that trying to touch up these photos in Lightroom afterwards was very tricky. Maybe let's take a look at some of the process. Basically, any shifting of the sliders in either direction leads to some pretty undesired effects. Not sure if that's due to my lab's scanning process or the emulsion itself, but look what happens when I move the highlight slider in this photo in particular. Like I said, my highlights are a little blown out in some of these, and there's just no way of recovering them in any meaningful way. The exposure latitude on this camera is lacking pretty significantly. One of the YouTubers that I love watching is Kyle McDougall. You should definitely go check out his video on this Harman Phoenix film because he does some exposure tests and some color chart tests. He really goes in depth with his stuff, and definitely go check that out because it was kind of eye-opening. But also, speaking of Lightroom, I want to say that these images I'm showing you are nearly identical from what I got back from the lab, with minor adjustments to highlights to some of them, and really not much else. Some of them I had to adjust the white balance slightly, or maybe make some of the colors pop a bit more. I tend to like my colors to be a little bit more saturated than it seems most people do. But like this one, for example, I didn't adjust the exposure dials at all. I just bumped up the yellow, red, and blue saturation a bit to make these colors pop from behind the glass. One other thing you'll notice in my photos, which I kind of enjoy for the novelty of it, is the heavy halation around the highlights. When I posted my photos on Reddit, someone commented that it was as if Color Plus 200 and Cinestill had a baby, and that's kind of accurate. I'm not sure why there's such heavy halation in these images. Maybe it has something to do, maybe the film just doesn't have an anti-halation layer, and yeah, I don't really know, but I don't necessarily hate it. I've heard some people say that they do hate it. I don't really seem to mind it. Now, when it comes to scanning, Harman has carried out extensive scanning testing in conjunction with leading labs, including HarmanLab.com, thedarkroom.com, Blue Moon Camera, and Analog Wonder Lab, and have created recommended settings for the most common lab scanners that you'll see out there, such as Fuji Frontiers or Noritsu's. And they recommend that you check that your lab is aware of these before sending your film off to be developed or scanned. I trust the good folks over at my lab, Exposure Therapy, here in Brooklyn, right on Marcy Avenue. Go check them out if you don't know them. They really know what they're doing, and I think they gave me some scans that I'm very happy with. Harman just says that when left to autocorrect, the Frontier scanners may give you punchy colors with a sort of cross-processed look, and even a green tint in the case of Noritsu scanners. And also, due to the strong, prominent grain, they also suggest avoiding over-sharpening your scans. I've also noticed for some others online, the home scanning process allowed them to achieve more quote-unquote normal-looking images with less punchy contrast. At some point next year, I actually hope to get a home scanning setup going, and I might go back and rescan these photos just to see if I could achieve some different results, and if I do, I'll check back in. The general thing that I see out there on the internet surrounding the discourse of Harman Phoenix is a bit of a disheartening one. I see a lot of people doing this. Huh, okay, yeah, that's certainly interesting. Yeah. And frankly, that. We should all be jumping for joy. We should be shouting from the rooftops. We should be shaking every stranger we meet, telling them that there's a brand new C41 color film stock being manufactured from emulsion to cassette in the year of our Lord 2023. I mean, my brothers in Christ, this is a big moment, not one that should be treated lightly. At the time of this recording, we're about 3 weeks after the launch of this product, and you could almost feel the excitement dwindling. Like the dust has started to settle. But color film, if you weren't aware, is super difficult to make. Harman, from what I hear, spent the better part of a year in research and development for this product, and even then what they got out of it was a little low quality and kind of janky. And I say that with all love and respect. Making a stable, high quality, consistent film takes a much bigger team, a lot more money, and a much longer timeline. Someone like Kodak has had the luxury in that their films are the combined effort of decades upon decades of research, development, and refinement. With Phoenix, on the other hand, we have a small team of people crunching out a passion project as a proof of concept in 12 months' time. And what it ultimately does is places people like us, the consumers, the people shooting the film, in a bit of a powerful but potentially uncomfortable position. Because let's face it, a lot of people buy film to use it. They buy it because of its look or because of its consistency or its reliability. The general consensus with Phoenix seems to be that it needs a lot of work, and people aren't too thrilled with the look of it or the reliability of it. And unfortunately, that might dissuade people from buying the film. But we, the film photography enthusiasts of the world, are also in the position of propping up this grassroots manufacturer, this experiment, and allowing Harman to keep refining their process so they can get to the point where they're one of the heavy hitters in the color film market. You may be one of those people out there who's thinking, oh, I'm just going to hold off on buying it until they fix the emulsion and get it down to an exact science and they make the colors look better and it's a bit more reliable. Stop right there, because all of the money that's being made in this beta stage is being repurposed and recycled back into the company, back into this project, back into research and development, back into the product so that they can deliver the product that you so desire. And if we all sat around waiting for the right emulsion, Harman wouldn't have the means of completing the work necessary to get there. In their marketing for this, they're very clear that it is experimental, it's limited edition, and they've been transparent about the fact that this is just the beginning. But we can't get too comfortable and assume that they're going to prosper, that plenty of other people are going to buy the film, and that Harman is going to continue to be able to grow without our help. Essentially, we have to speak with our wallets if we want or expect any meaningful change. For me, this is an exciting enterprise. It feels like a chance to be a part of something bigger than myself. Something that we may look back on 50 years from now when Harman and Kodak are spoken of in the same breath with ease. We'll all look around at each other and say, remember where you were when you shot Harman Phoenix 200 for the first time? And then we'll say, look how far we've come. Now, to be clear, you probably already guessed this, but this video was not sponsored by Harman. They didn't ask me to say all of these nice things about them. I'm saying all of this because I genuinely believe it. I mentioned up top that I grabbed 2 rolls of Harman Phoenix, and I was waiting to see the results of roll number 1 before I actually shot roll number 2. Well, now that I've seen them, I think I'm ready. I'm going to go out and I'm going to shoot my second roll of Harman Phoenix 200. Thank you all for watching. I hope that this video was helpful for anyone who is on the fence about buying Harman Phoenix 200. If anything, just treat it as an experimental film and treat it as something that you are shooting and buying with a greater purpose, a greater good in mind. That's sort of been my stance on it. But also, all in all, I don't hate my photos. Like, I think the photos that I got from this stuff are actually pretty good and pretty decent. They're not my favorites of the year or anything, but they show a lot of promise. So color me excited for the future of Harman Phoenix and whatever other color films that they may be trying to work on. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified when new videos are released, hit the like button, head to the comments, let me know what you thought of Harman Phoenix 200, let me know what you thought of my photos. You could also head over to my print shop. Consider buying a print. You could really help out this channel, help me grow. 2024 is right around the corner. I got some big stuff planned, but I could always use some extra help. You could also become a member of the channel. Go find that join button, and for a few bucks a month, you can get some interesting perks. And with that, I will see you all next time.